And we're back on the AM show. We serve you our first belt as far as the big stories are concerned. And on that first belt, we're going to be contemplating the big economic quagmire Ghana finds itself in. We're looking at a very tricky situation, the inflationary rate, the exchange rate as well. Then you are looking at unstable power supply and that internet difficulty that we faced, deadly cocktail. We'll be looking into those among other matters. And joining us for a discussion, we have Dr. Richmond Atuahene. He's a banking consultant. We'll also have joining the conversation Dr. Sharif Mahmoud Khalid, an associate professor in accounting and finance. But I'll start with Dr. Atuahene. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
It's good to have you join the conversation. Do we have Dr. Khalid yet? Not yet, I believe. So we'll start with you, Dr. Atuahene. Even before we get into the nitty-gritty, I don't know whether you were watching right before we came on, our filth exhibition, and what we showed. And that is Accra for you, the cleaner city in Africa, as I don't know whether as per the plan, but what did you make of that? What you saw? The rains will soon be upon us again. And I guess with this filth, we shall have a lot to talk about. I just want your quick thoughts on that before we get into the main matters.
Thank you very much. I think we haven't dealt anything with the filth at all, and it's getting worse. With all the slogans and the English and whatever we said, I think we have done absolutely nothing. And it's quite a disgrace to the country. If you want to make Ghana a tourism hub, as they've been proclaiming, I believe this filth cannot go on. And I don't think we have tackled it in any way. It has rather gotten worse. And my fear is that when the rain sets in, we are going to see a lot of distractions, and which they will then declare that they are sending this, what is called emergency team or whatever. NADMO. I mean, it is very disgraceful. I mean, if you see the filth that is shown, and it's all over the place. It's not that place alone. It's all over. And you begin to ask yourself, you appoint a minister of sanitation and whatever have you, appoint MDU and MD, whatever you call them, and they don't seem to be doing. But you see, they've all added to what I won't talk about it, but I want to speak about it. If you look at the public sector wage bill, it has jumped from 44 billion to 62 billion. And what job have they done to deserve to be paid? And this is very sad. You see, it is affecting the physical space, that people are not working and they are being paid. So that is what I'll say about the filth.
Well, there we have it. Our filth exhibition. I'm grateful for your thoughts on the matter, but let's get into the substantive issues. Even before we get into the bit about the internet connectivity and everything that has happened, unstable power supply, the slump of the city, and the requirements of the city as far as the business community is concerned, I'd like to find out from you, as a Ghanaian in Ghana today, what is the state of affairs for you? If I asked you, for example, deliver the State of the Nation address per you and where you sit and your pocket and what you see and what you feel, what you have to deal with on a daily basis, what would you say?
Thank you very much, Ben. What I would say is that I will start by looking at 2016 when we want to take the review over the last 7 years. At least we haven't seen any considerable improvement in the living of Ghanaians. Rather, our condition have actually worsened. And if I want to talk about the debt, I mean, with all the DDEPs, now the debt is 600 million. Now we are begging the Europe people.
You mean 600 billion?
610 billion, according to the governor.
Yeah, you said million earlier. That's why I was just referencing that as billion.
610 billion.
Exactly.
Even with the DDEP. And now we're going on our knees, begging the Euro people to give us a physical space. And It is nothing to write home about in the country. I mean, if you want me to speak about the economy, the poverty. I mean, if you check the World Bank level of poverty, they said poverty has increased from 21% and is going to go to 34% in the year 2025. This is a World Bank report. I'm quoting the World Bank. So you're talking about poverty. You're talking about power, intermittent power fluctuation. And if I tell you how I have suffered ever since I came back, I traveled out and I came back. I have my fridge destroyed by this power. But you see, in a jurisdiction where you have no business of getting them to do the right thing, you report to the PURC, what do? I mean, in another jurisdiction, when you prepaid for something, you're supposed to have it 24/7. Unfortunately, you hear people come in there talking English, speaking semantics, but the actual issue is not being dealt with. The reason why I'm saying it has not been dealt with the energy. In 2020, I think 2021, the World Bank said that if we don't deal with our energy problem, we're going to have crisis. Instead of we taking an ad hoc measures, we continue to have debt overhang from the energy sector. And I predicted about one month ago at one of my lectures, I said that we're going to see a worse electricity outages than we saw in Dumso. Unfortunately, within 3 months, within 1 month, this thing has been happening because we are not tackling it headlong. We have technical losses, transmission losses, all equipment, all these things have not been replaced. But all that you hear people talking about revenue generation, let me tell you, those countries that transmit power, every 4 years, 5 years, you have to change all the overhead cables. Otherwise, we are losing close to 30% transmission. We are losing, check your record. So when they say they have produced 100 whatever megawatts, we're not going to get 101. We're going to get about 70. And all these things, they price it in for a consumer to pay. And it can only happen, and I want to say this, it can only happen in this part of our world where you have regulators not regulating. You have regulators who will sit down for almost 2 months and then they will come to say, write this, do that. I mean, in which jurisdiction? So Ben, if you give me, let me predict, it's not going to get better for the next maybe 4 years because the debt overhang of the energy must be treated with alacrity and speed rather than ad hoc. Set a committee, give 444 million to this and that. The problem is not so much of that. We are having a transmission losses equivalent to 30%. And we are not dealing with it. We are taking ad hoc measures and we are doing things as if all things are equal. So if you ask me to talk about a nation, and don't let me tell you, when 2016, when the country changed over, 2017, inflation was 15.4. Currently, people are clapping their hands that inflation has come to 23.2. Look, our sister country, 2 sister countries, I'll give you a record check. La Côte d'Ivoire has 3.6% inflation. Togo has 6.7% inflation. So if you're clamoring and praising yourself, inflation coming down from 54 to 54.1 to who are you trying to deceive? Who are you trying to deceive? Doing business now has become so difficult. Look, GCC, Ghana Chamber of Commerce, AGI are saying, and PwC recently said that businesses, multinationals are moving their businesses from Ghana. Do you know what is going? In a small country like this, we have 27 tax handles. And if you listen to the vice president himself, what he said recently, it is nothing to write home about.
You mean what he said about the GRA and businesses, hounding businesses?
Yes, we are settling ourselves with so many taxes that businesses are crumbling because immediately you start business, the first thing you do that you haven't talked about production, you talk about tax. You think about how to go to fulfill your tax when you haven't produced. In which economy? and they say they are economists. They have studied PhD economics. They have done this. I have never seen PhD economics talking about taxation without talking about proper production. So I find it, if you ask me this morning to talk about State of Nation address, I'm not going to give you anything better. The country is at its worst position. Look at debt. The debt was 122.6 billion. And when they started borrowing, I was one person who stood and spoke at one of the forums at Kempinski, saying the way we are borrowing and not putting it into a productive and economic viable projects, we're going to pay through our nose. Today, we are paying through our nose. People, pensioners have lost their money. The interest has been so derailed. And what economy do we have? Absolutely, we have nothing. And the sad thing that I want to talk about, with all the political campaign people are making, what I haven't heard from anybody about how are we going to resuscitate agriculture and do economic diversification. Look, let me take you to Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. They don't rely on cocoa alone. They have coffee, they have banana. Currently, they have what you call, I don't know whether it's oil palm or what have we. Unilever in Netherlands are buying their oil, or their oil, palm oil or whatever you call it, from La Cote d'Ivoire. And you hear people talking about economy. We are going to do digitization. A country that cannot feed himself. It is not good talking about digitization. I want them to tackle economic diversification, especially agri. We are importing rice, equivalent to 1.2 billion. Not too long ago, I was told we imported yellow maize from Vietnam to feed the poultry. What sort of economy is that? You live in an arable land. You live in a forest area. You live in savannah. You import tomatoes and onion from a Sahelian country. It's a totally disgrace. A totally disgrace to those who are in power. And I don't know, I don't have words for them. I don't. Because people live in Sahelian, plant tomatoes and onions, Niger, Burkina Faso, and we send our trucks to import it to forest areas. And we don't want to tackle it headlong. So Ben, I will end here, because if you allow me, I can give you a lecture over the whole day. There's nothing in this place. There's no area that I'm going to give anybody positive. No area.
But let's get surgical with this. And I appreciate where you're coming from. Your fridge has got spoiled and all that. I'll go back to doom so briefly. But before I do, I just have a few questions to run by you. You say Ghana is at its worst. And my question is, at its worst compared to what? You say that you don't know of any PhD economics. I'm sure you're referencing the vice president who talks taxation without production. But
Bernard, I'm not referencing.
Bernard, you're not referencing him.
I'm making a case that yes,
because I was going to mention that he had said, he had spoken about moving from taxation to production. You heard him say that. So I was going to say, well, he's spoken about it. So why are you saying that he? I mean, but now that you've clarified, you weren't referencing him. That is fine. Why do you say Ghana is at its worst? Compared to what? What's the benchmark? What's the comparative?
Compared to our sister nations. Yesterday, 3 days ago, Nigeria, with all their problems, were able to settle their Eurobond debt and World Bank debt without doing debt restructuring. I mean, and you cannot afford to repay what you have collected. And now you go on your knees begging. As if you didn't know what you were doing. So if I say I do comparative studies, I'm even talking about our brothers in Nigeria who our economy is not better, but they managed recently to settle some of their debt without rescheduling it, without doing debt exchange, without rescheduling it and doing it and going on your knees. I mean, Ghana wasn't like this. Ghana wasn't like that. So when I say comparison, I'm even looking at your next neighbor, Cote d'Ivoire. You saw what infrastructure they put up for their what do you call the games? I've forgotten the name of the games.
The African Games.
You could see the type of standard of stadiums put up. And when you have yours, you go to Cape Coast and play, and the power goes off.
Oh, so you're referencing right. You're referencing the AFCON versus the African Games recently, right? But I also, you made this point, and I noted it down. You spoke about digitization and everything, and that we need better. I mean, on the back of the one student, one tablet policy, for example, some people have said you can't even feed the students, and you are talking of giving them laptops. But digitization leads to digitalisation, which is where you monetize the digital space. Is it wrong that we're going in that direction?
Ben, thank you very much. My worry is that tackle the economic diversification first. Seek ye first all the kingdom of God, and all things shall be added to it. And a country where you cannot feed yourself, a country where you cannot even produce. Now look at cocoa. As I speak to you, yesterday, cocoa price was 9,000 tons.
Yeah.
9,000 US dollars
per ton.
Yeah, can you believe it? And we are even
cocoa is now more expensive than copper.
That is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we cannot even produce even 500,000 tons. In 2 years ago, I traveled to my farm in Kasemo, Kwamu Krom. When I came back at one of your sister stations, I predicted that Ghana will drop as low as 300,000 metric tons. One of the people who call themselves political PROs challenged me, and I gave him the reason why. If you don't invest where your strength is, there is no way. Even with the El Nino weather, if we have taken concrete measures to invest very well since 2017, at least we'll be harvesting no less than 600,000 metric tons, irrespective of the El Nino weather. But you see, we would prefer to politicize it instead of looking at the farmers on the ground, supporting them. Ben, I went to the place. Let me tell you the sad story. In 2008, the then President Kufuor created feeder roads to all farms in Kasem, Kwame Krom. So, and the Confidor, they give them Confidor to spray the cocoa.
Right.
And my mother's farm, which it is my farm now, when I visited them in 2022, there are no roads. So when they harvest the cocoa, they carry it at their back and bring it 6, 10, 15 kilometers to Nkasem. And there were no abobo yard to carry it. When they went to the farm, they give them one Confidor instead of a full 15 package of Confidor. So when I came back, one of your sister stations called me, and I predicted that once we haven't made concrete effort to support cocoa industry, we are not going to benefit from it. And lo and behold, I am not a prophet of a doom. I am a Jeremiah prophet who speak the truth in the midst of falsehood and lies. Somebody at Cocoa Board, I won't mention his name, he called the station. Do you know that immediately I left the place and spoke on the radio like your program? The next day they went to reconstruct the road. The people called me and said, hey, since you came in, the road has been, why do you have me to speak on radio first before you go and construct the road? Put your mouth, put your investment where you can repeat. Cocoa, even if cocoa alone was able to give us 500,000. And I'll talk to about one thing that I think I will share with everybody on this panel program. There's one thing that we have done to ourselves, and I'm disclosing it to you, and I hope people will listen to it. In 2019, Ghana passed a Payment Service Act, which deregulated remittances, and it hurts me. At that time, we were making over 3 billion remittances, inward remittances.
Right.
And then they passed the law, brought in fintechs and some of these telecodes. And yesterday I read, because of your program, I read one of the telecodes financial statement for who they have declared dividend. And in it, I saw international remittances as part of the service. The question I want to put to the governor and all the people, where is the foreign exchange component of the remittances? Where is the foreign component of those remittances? It is being withheld by some companies. The only people who have to submit returns is the 23 authorized dealer banks. The other but 14, they have withheld the foreign. Anybody can go to me anywhere because I have done a research and I have published a paper in International Journal of Social Sciences, published in February. How do you remittances of 4.7 billion in 2022? We only captured 22.1. Where is the balance? Where is the balance? Why wouldn't the city run? Why wouldn't the city depreciate? Why the city wouldn't run like Usain Bolt? Because we ourselves has inflicted damage to ourselves by passing a law going against the Foreign Exchange Act 723/2006, which says that nobody can withhold foreign exchange except BOG and the authorized dealer bank. Today, I speak to you without fear of favor. If anybody challenge me, I'll give you the work, study it, and question me. Why would we do that? Because remittances are part to support the economy. Now, remittances have been deregulated. People are withholding it, the foreign currency, and then just receiving the CD. What does it do to the economy?
And that's an interesting point you make, because even if you look at some of the data, you would see that the World Bank is reporting that remittances to the country were a certain amount. Over 4 years, we've lost over 4 or 5 years, we've lost about 20 billion. And it will reveal that while we may be saying in this year we got 2-point-something billion, the actual figure is about 1 billion more. In fact, if you look at those metrics, you would realize that if we had those remittances and got the value of taxes on them, we probably wouldn't have needed to go to the IMF. But let me take you briefly back to a point as far as our power situation is concerned, and then I'll come back to the substantive issue of our economy and everything in between. Now, if you look at the 2024 Energy Outlook by the Ghana Energy Commission, they themselves subtly determined that we would get here where there would be doomsday. If you read part of that statement, it says, in 2024, installed capacity of 5,194 megawatts with a dependable capacity of 4,756 megawatts will be available to the grid and utilized to meet the projected system peak demand of 3,788 megawatts, giving a reserve margin of 25%. However, factoring in planned scheduled maintenance for generation units and fuel supply situation, available capacity could be 4,400 megawatts of the total dependable capacity, which then means that out of the installed capacity of 5,194, we had a dependable capacity of 4,756, and then we knew that at a point we would have less than 4,400 megawatts of that dependable capacity. The question we would all ask is, knowing this, what did we do in the interim? Knowing this, what did we do? And today, you can't even use the term doomsday, because if you use it, some people get unhappy about it. It makes me laugh, but anyway.
Man, thank you very much. I would want Ghanaians to be honest and truthful and act with integrity. If you are not making it, tell the whole country, this is the program and we are scheduling it. Yesterday, for instance, an old man like me, the little food I had in my fridge, all that I sought in the morning, it was just off. And nobody is going around even to apologize. You see, I will repeat, man, let me say this. All these problems stem from the way we work in this country. People don't respect consumers. In other jurisdiction, before you can say jack, the people will come with vans. Oh, we apologize. We are ratifying it. We will do it. This one, he does it with impunity and then come and sit on the radio and begin to justify what he's doing. What sort of country is this? And you call yourself you are going to develop. What are you going to develop? In developing countries, You need to have these sort of systems. Oh, I will put my power off for so and so period. I will come back. Even if you don't call it doom, so say that we are going to do a timetable for power rescheduling. I mean, nobody will fight you. But because you have used the word to slight people before, you are afraid to even to mention it. And anytime you come to on defense, you say, oh, it is not that. Our system has failed. Greco has failed. So and so has failed. Who cares about failing? A consumer who has paid for a product expect to have the product to meet its spec standards. It is not, I don't believe in you telling me that this and that. If you couldn't supply it, tell us. Let me ask you this question. If this morning you walk to a bank to collect your salary, and the bank manager tells you that, oh, we don't have money. Wait, we are going to collect money from deposited account. Would you be happy with it? You will not. But this is exactly what these electricity and water people are doing. Where I live, I pay my water bill consistently. But if I tell you, I don't know, water doesn't come. And when you go and ask them, oh, the system is this. So the money you collect, you collect it for what? So Ben, it is very sad. Very, very sad.
Well,
from where we've been from 1985, where I've been part in this country to today, at times I feel very, very disappointed that I should have even overstayed somewhere I was rather than coming to support this economy. Not at all. I regret it because what I have seen over the last 6 years is nothing to write home about.
I can feel the passion and the exasperation in your voice, but together we shall build, and hopefully things get better. I'm excited about what is happening in Senegal with Basiru, 44-year-old, and the wonderful things he's doing. But let me also bring through Dr. Sharif Mahmoud Khalid. He's Associate Professor in Accounting and Finance. Dr. Khalid, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation. Hello, Doc. Can you hear me? Please unmute.
Okay. Hi. Good morning, Ben, and thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. It's quite the cocktail that we're discussing. I don't know for how long you've followed Dr. Atuahene's interactions and everything he said. If you followed it from the very start, I'd like your brief take on everything he said before we get into your own analysis of the substantive issues one by one. We'll look at power, we'll look at the CD and all that, but just a quick bite on that.
Well, I've been following Doug and his passionate inputs into our national development for quite some time now, and he's one of the genuine voices I've actually come across. It's not to placate him, but that's the reality. And I mean, something dearest to me was I spoke to my dad, 70-plus-year-old father back home in Ghana, and the first thing he told me was that all my air conditioners in the house are blown. I was like, what happened? He's like, well, a transformer nearby got destroyed and affected the entire neighborhood. So it's the same fate as Doc indicated with his fridge. So every single air conditioner in the house is blown, right? And surprisingly, I asked that, what has ECG done about it? And he told me, what could ECG do? Because, they don't have any consumer protection issues to talk about, and they don't have any protection to the end user consumer. And this is the fate of the country. I'm wondering how many people, because interestingly, a house nearby got burnt by the same, power disruption. So it tells you the kind of fate people are going through as far as electricity distribution is concerned. Yet still, you have an MD of such an institution who sits on national TV and is emboldened enough to tell people that it is beginning to compare about what is a privilege and what is not a privilege when it comes to a prepaid service. It tells you that he himself doesn't have the understanding of the cutout job he has to do. And this is most unfortunate. Right. You come to the issues of cocoa in terms of investments and the likes. I'm just picking bits by bits in all the issues Doc talked about. I mean, never in the history of this country have we ever cracked a sweat to even put together a cocoa syndicated loan. That has happened under this regime. Where are we going with all of this? So on the international market, it's been a big struggle to pull together a syndicated loan. And all of these things, as you'd see, they just don't only affect the local economy, they affect the currency issues as well. When I come to that, or when we are talking about the economy, I'll bring that in. Again, Doc talked about issues of La Côte d'Ivoire and, kept making examples to Abidjan. Abidjan is now becoming a hub for headquarters of multinationals. L'Oréal, which was under a free zones, is moved to Abidjan. ENI is moved to Abidjan. Right now, what I'm scared of is when Nestle decides to move to Abidjan, what will we be left with? So these are happenings around our landscape or economic landscape and corporate landscape that we are not paying attention to, but rather bogged down with the politics.
But it is the reality. I mean, you have Togo with its port system, and already it has taken a chunk of our businesses. I know of Ghanaian businesses that have moved there so that they can benefit from the free port. Now, if the situation, and every business is rational, they are rational business people. These multinational corporations.
Let's juxtapose it with the position of the vice president recently on taxation again,
right.
which they touched. He's bastardizing state institutions that generate taxes for the people. In any case, tax is a psychological issue, right? It is a behavioral issue. If you rack up taxes, look at the tax handles we have, over 27 tax handles. What happened is that given the behavioral nature of taxation, when you have loads of taxes being heaped on the individual consumer or an individual entrepreneur, evasion happens because they wouldn't want to pay the right. So when this happens and you turn around to say that, a state institution that is mandated to collect taxes is harassing taxpayers, then that becomes problematic. Then your best solution to that is tax amnesty. And I really wondered within the context within which he put it, whether he indeed understands what tax amnesty indeed is.
Because I was about to get to that, because he's saying that, and he's saying that it will be a clean slate. We will start afresh. That's what he said.
Tax amnesty is meant for, it's a revenue strategy, actually. So how does it become a clean slate? And in any case, the downside to tax amnesty is that those compliant taxpayers also become recalcitrant because they feel that, okay, well, if people could be given tax amnesty, let me also wait, I could be given tax amnesty. So what happens is that it demoralizes the tax base and payment becomes an issue and revenue generation becomes an issue. So I don't know how ill-advised he was. And the choice of words and fora, for me, I think that, again, was not very prudent. You don't go before the commerce industry, right? The very institution or pivotal, a chamber that generates tax or revenue for the people and start to tell them that they are being attacked by revenue collectors. I think that was most unfortunate. In any case,
right.
In any case, who heaped up the taxes? Right. Look at importation today.
So on the back of that, the Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana has said it will not fall for the shenanigans, as it calls it, of the vice president in this latest debate about saying the Ghana Revenue Authority is harassing businesses and saying that for 7 years, what have they done? That's the question. But on the bit about power, right?
Yep.
I have Susan sending me a message. She says, I had to buy a new motor and fan for my fridge and freezer. They are just 3 years old. Why are ECG not being held accountable? I know someone else who very recently also had to. In fact, she told me that the repairer, the refrigerator repairer, had told them, you have two options. You can fix the freezer. It will cost you north of 2,500 cedis. Now, it would, and I cannot guarantee that it will last that long. So it may be better to just purchase a new one. And you know the cost of a brand new freezer. So these are circumstances. My fridge, nowadays, it sounds funny. There's a funny sound emanating from my fridge that I've used for years. All of a sudden, it's not sounding like it usually would. But then, even when you consider all of this, what would you say, how would you say this is impacting business? Especially when you consider the cedi and its slump over time, 10% just in this year, the January-February window, 6.8% or so. How much damage is that doing to us?
Well, a lot of damage, because as you could see, and a part of the economy, we deal a lot with Forex, and Forex plays an integral role. That's most unfortunate, though, right? As you'd see from the news item, the central bank is already trying to get some Forex to the OMCs to get onto the market and all of that. So all of these issues happening, you realize that business, walk into these days, people, if you even realize where businesses are impacted, no one is going for Samsung products, right? People are going for products of subsidiaries of Samsung that are less cheaper, which is Media and NASCO. So it tells you the impact it has on consumers because purchasing power has actually reduced because Samsung used to be the go-to product. Right. So what it means is that Samsung in and of itself, or key distributors of Samsung, will not be bringing
But I would have to avoid. Let's not bring in the brand names and all of that because
I'm just doing that within the context of an economic exercise.
Right.
Right. I haven't bastardized any institution. What I'm saying is, will you go for a NASCO or a Samsung or a media? That's the reality on the ground. This doesn't affect their business in any way. Right. Yeah. So this is just to give a classic example and let consumers relate to what they are doing and what is happening to them and what the economy has resorted them to do. Because as I indicate with the issue of the AC, the example, if I were to go back on the market to buy ACs myself, personally, I'm going to go for a media or a NASCO because Samsungs are way on the high side and because purchasing power has actually reduced. And this is what it is done to the economy because you're asking me to actually break down the impact on the economy and the consumer. And these are relatable examples. But who's in the market buying a refrigerator or an air conditioner or any product or electrical product.
It behoves, well, it is up to the consumer. There are still those with the purchasing power who will go for the Samsungs and the others. So we'll leave those.
Within a public office, you would go for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Just for those who are watching, I noticed that I think connectivity issues and the feed has been truncated. So a lot of you have gone off, but you can reconnect because I think this feed has been ended and a new one will be started so that you can get on board. I always follow, so I can see that there are some challenges. Let me also come back to Dr. Atuahene. So especially on the bit about the slump of the city. And I'm addressing this to Dr. Atuahene before I come back to you, Dr. Khalid. What can we expect in the coming weeks, months? Because we've got that latest tranche of $600 million from the IMF. We've got some others mopped up from the World Bank and other organizations. But it appears that within this window where the pharmaceutical setups, where importers and all of that, even when it comes to oil, they are going to need hard currency to import. It may take quite a slice out of what we have to fall on in terms of our foreign exchange. What impact will that have on Ghana's economy within the next foreseeable future?
Ben, thank you very much once again on the trade balances. Ben, it is very, very sad. Even if you had a chance to read the governor's policy about this monetary policy and the outcomes on the foreign exchange, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good because I have a data in front of me here. Clearly, all the areas that we were supposed to have benefited from, say, cocoa, we are actually going down. We are actually going down. And one thing that is very strange, which a lot of Ghanaians don't know, and which today I want Professor Salim know, I want to tell Ghanaians, they will tell you that gold gave us 1.2 billion for the first 2 months. Let me tell you, that is the total gold that has been exported. The surrender value to Bank of Ghana BOP is 156, not 1.2. Let people should get it clear. Last year they exported 6.2 billion. We only got about 900. 2 years ago, the total value was 6.6. We got 869 million, not even a billion. So when I saw the governor's statement, he mentioned gold. But the figure, I want to tell him that the gold figure is the total value of gold exported. But the surrender value to be Bank of Ghana was 156 million. Now, let us go to non-traditional export. The governor himself said that it has declined. And it is all about supply and demand. What you export. And don't forget, crude. If you export crude, you also import crude. So it squares itself off. So that one, the benefit is too marginal. What we rely on was the cocoa, the gold, the diamond, the bauxite. But they are not all making impact. So if you ask me, but the import, which is the foreign payments, are all on the rise. So if you ask me my candid opinion, the cedi is not going to get better today. And I can tell you today, when MTN make a profit, they made a dividend. After paying the dividend tax, after paying the corporate dividend tax, 70% of the dividend will be remitted to where the head office is. And yesterday, the governor said that most banks are making profit. And I know the banks that are going to make profit, because when governor changed the modalities of calculating DDEP, the first DDEP destroyed almost all the banks. But when he tweaked it in September and put the Bank of Ghana, all the banks, all the foreign banks are, and when they all go into the market to transfer, what it happens to us is that it put pressure on the cedi to the dollar. For the first, today up to June, I'm not a prophet of a doom. I won't be surprised that the cedi to the dollar can go as far as 15, because this is the time that these banks and these institutions like MTN are going to remit. Unfortunately, when people talk about the 300 million, the amount of payment we make is so colossal, bigger than whatever you've gotten from IMF. If you have sat in the International Trade Department, as I have done, and done treasury, also in a bank in Ghana, the demand for foreign exchange, for drugs, for spare parts, for rice, for meat, for poultry feed is so high that we are not going to meet it, and the cedi is not going to get better. The only consolation that we have gotten from it is that we are not paying our bills, like we are not paying the foreign bonds and foreign debt. They have postponed it. If they were be paying it, and my brother, today, the cedi would have gone to about 18 or 20, because we are not producing enough, exporting enough to support the currency. And where we had the strength, like using remittances, we have also deregulated it. And you said in your speech that it is about 20 billion for the last 5 years. Divide it even by 5. We would have saved 2 billion a year. And the 2 billion would have transcended to support the cedi. Unfortunately, the cedi has no bright future. I'm saying it. When the government took over, the cedi was 4.1. Today we are talking about 13. And we didn't invest in areas where, like in the agric, poultry, maize, rice, that would have helped us to do what import substitution, so that we could have preserved the foreign exchange. So my brother, the problem is that we have created our own problem. And the end is not going to be from IMF, and it's not going to be from World Bank. Because the amount of money you're getting, if you look at the analysis they did, how much you need for the balance of payment over the next 5 years. This year, we are talking about 4.5 billion. We're talking about 4.5 billion. And that would translate it into the depreciation of the currency.
Right.
And that would mean that this currency, as we have, is not going to get better, because we don't have what it takes. The supply is not there, but the demand is there. And it is as simple. It is just between supply and demand.
Right.
And if the demand is big, if the supply is bigger than the demand, it translated into the depreciation of the currency.
Right. Before I take your final...
Let me finish. And don't forget, for what we have done to ourselves, foreign direct investment has also declined. In those days, foreign investment direct will come in to help us. Unfortunately, because we declare ourselves bankrupt, and now we are now scratching who wants to come into Ghana to do investment in Ghana. All these things impacts on the cedi. So that is what I will say for the time being.
Right. When I come back to you, I'll be taking your final thoughts, and maybe you can also share your thoughts on the internet situation we have faced. But coming back to you, Dr. Khalid, about 10 years ago, today, to this day, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, held a lecture referencing the restoration of the Ghana cedi, among others. At the time, the CD to the dollar was around 3 CDs. And here we are. And so I'm talking about 2014. And here we are. It is 13 CDs and 74 pesos or so. I'd like to find out from you, considering that, and considering what Doc has been saying, that our currency, it's not going to get better over the next 4 years. He talks about the CD has no bright future. That's what he says. And he says he wouldn't be surprised if it hit 15 CDs to the dollar by June. Are you going to corroborate this? Are you of the same, do you share those sentiments?
Yeah, I'm on the same page as Doc, and I'm going to just, buttress my points, right? Lower export revenue is one of the issues that can really affect a currency underperformance. Now you look at issues of export revenues. Export revenues obviously will have to go down or have gone down due to the tax issues that have been actually the burden of taxation at our ports. It's become very massive. You look at the items. Try to bring a Hyundai i10. Again, this is me mentioning a brand which is basic to actually give a classic example of what is going to happen. The cost of the vehicle probably in Belgium and what you pay to get it off at the port, right? It's probably 3 times the cost of the vehicle or twice the cost of the vehicle. So you'd realize that, again, a lot of people are going to, stay back from actually importing such. So what happens is that is going to impact on revenue, right? A surge in importation. We're importing rice. We're importing oil. We're importing almost every commodity into the economy. Again, that is going to happen. That is not going to stop anytime soon, right? We look at speculation on the market, right? This speculation has been self-inflicted. And I would come to a point where we've had the last straw that just broke the camel's back as far as speculation is concerned. So you look at issues happening around the central bank, posting of losses and how it was treated. All of this feed into issues of speculation and currency trading, right? Or traders engage in currency issues or speculating on the market. Now we had an IMF program and the first tranche came in successfully. The second tranche took a lot of speculation to come in, and you have traders hedging their bets, traders gauging this. Cocoa syndicated loan, again, it did not come in as. So it really disrupted the market. So people couldn't engage and heightened speculation. What happened last week? You had an IMF boss flying into the country on a weekend to engage with key stakeholders, i.e. the minister, the governors, and by the minister, I'm referring to the finance minister and the vice president or head of the economic management team. For no reason, there's no conference in town. There's absolutely nothing happening in town. And yet you have the IMF boss with her key principal officers flying into the country. Again, that is a big trigger of speculation. Why did she fly in? A lot of people don't know. You, the media.
What do you think? What do you think?
Well, it gives speculation because negotiations are ongoing, right? Bills are before the House that have economic implications, as they would say, right? So there's a lot of speculation that could. So if you and I are struggling as of now to actually hinge on one thing as the reason why an IMF boss will fly into the country on a weekend, more so on a Sunday, then that heightens issues of speculation. And that would invariably impact on the currency performance, right? So again, you look at central banks' interventions as well, right? And monetary policy issues. So you look at all of these things that have happened and they continue to happen and they haven't proven in and of itself that this is what we're doing locally to actually turn the economy around. Yet we turn around to say that the economy has turned a corner when we are in an overheated economy, right? And in an overheated economy, it ought to cool off, as I've always said, before it can turn a corner. We haven't cooled off yet. We're in the process of cooling off thanks to the IMF. What domestic policy have we in place to actually cool off? None has been proffered so far. So as far as I'm concerned, we're still, heading for tougher days and tougher times to come as far as monetary issues are concerned, and for the matter, the CD is concerned. And this would invariably impact business. And for me, what worries me a great deal is any government that is going to take over from this government would be in serious trouble.
Speaking of which,
election year and this big ticket expenditures is also coming. And with the IMF's boss presence, what she alluded to, the fact that most of us have been proffering over the airways that we've been attacked of, is that there were big ticket items that were spent on in the election year of 2020. We're going to have the same because we don't have that discipline.
Just to conclude, gentlemen, a minute each. We also have the thorny issue of the internet situation. Just as we were having this conversation, I mean, part of it has been truncated online, partly due to some of these challenges. How messy does that make the already difficult cocktail that especially the business community has to deal with? And final words. So I'll start with you, Dr. Khalid. Your 1 minute, maximum 1 minute, 30 seconds. I'll do same for Dr. Atuahene, and then we're gone.
Well, I mean, you mentioned issues of digitalization and digitalisation, right? So I think that most of the investment we've put in so far, we're probably still very reliant on subsea cables. It's about time we come together, probably as even a sub-region, to have investments in our internet space, especially by launching satellites. I think that would go a long way to actually
lower Earth orbit satellites.
Yeah, right. To actually help improve the space, because it tells you what can happen, and it also gives. Imagine this happening on polling day, on an election day. It's going to be chaos, and you don't know what is going to result in. And I think Doc again did make a fundamental point. You have all of these telecos in town that their key mandate is to provide quality voice and data services. Yet they've been involved in financial transactions. And for me, this is something I've been speaking against from day one. Thankfully, I have someone supporting me for the first time, because, I mean, they can collaborate with banks to develop their apps and systems, but their core mandate is to provide quality voice and data services. And that should be their focus, allowing them to get into gray spaces, actually gray our economy the more, and this actually affect revenue issues. You look at repatriation of Forex and the likes of that, which all impact again upon our economy. And that, for me, I think that we have to actually have a roadmap to actually fixing all of this, because you have the internet space, and look at what is done to a lot of businesses. And for me, again, this also comes with an opportunity. Let's just not look at the dark side of it. Those that are already in the data provision spaces should also see this as an opportunity to actually get innovative enough to produce data from other sources.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid. Final points, Dr. Atuahene.
Thank you, Ben. I think Prof made a statement that the fiscal indiscipline in 2020 was 15% of the GDP. When the IMF director, the CEO came in, he told them that we shouldn't do anything that will stop the fiscal discipline. Because if you commission projects, whatever, computer to people, whatever, without actually planning, what you're going to do is that you're going to destroy anybody who takes over the economy. Like Prof said, anybody who takes on this economy, he needs the grace, Allah's grace, to be able to move this country, because where we are, it will be very difficult. Now, let me come to the internet. Like Prof said, somebody comes in and to do data and voice, and suddenly he shifts a core business to remittances, where he thinks it's cash cow. What would he do? You see, I've always been saying this to the banks who are in digitization. I say, I for one, have been in risk. Don't talk about digitization, doesn't talk about the risk associated with it. One day you get up in the morning. I predicted this thing that happened. A friend called me and said, are you a prophet? I said, we're going to have a challenge. So the man called me and said, Doc, did you see this coming? I said, because we are talking about out front. We are not talking about the back. And if the whole British Airways could have a challenge to fly 2 years ago, I don't see how. So those who are talking, the minister who is talking about, they should be talking about fallback position.
Right.
Like the doctor said.
Right.
Why don't we be thinking, aligning ourselves with the Indians to give us a satellite in the air so that we will have this digitization? Digitization depends on this infrastructure. If you haven't put it down, please forget it. It's an English semantics, because you need the structure, the substructures, before you can put it on. So I plead with those who are talking about this and talk about that. They should look at this.
Hello, Doc. Dr. Atuahene, can you hear me? Well, I think there's a connection or connectivity problem, which actually reflects what we're talking about. It could be the internet challenges in there, but I think we get the thrust of what he's saying. Those who joined us on this discussion, Dr. Richmond Atuahene, a banking consultant, together with Dr. Sharif Mahmoud Khalid, Associate Professor of Accounting and Finance. Thank you, gentlemen, for having joined the conversation. Well, also coming up on the show, we're going to be talking about the staggering road accident statistics year on year and the latest developments. Later on, we'll also talk about the one student, one tablet policy and everything in between. Stay with us for the latest. We'll be right back.